Paul Atreides wakes up like a man carrying the weight of two worlds, and you can feel it. He's not just a displaced Duke's son anymore. He's a prophet in training, angry, hungry, and determined. After the events that split House Atreides in two, Paul's life becomes less about surviving and more about becoming myth, and Part 2 digs into what that myth costs. He's with the Fremen now, learning their ways, learning to ride the worms, and learning that leadership is less about clever plans and more about bearing the expectations of people who see you as a savior. Paul's quiet moments with Chani show why so many follow him. She's not just his lover, she's his anchor, the one person who keeps him human when his visions try to turn him into something else. They joke, they spar, they share small comforts in the desert, and those scenes are the emotional bedrock because the story will ask him to sacrifice nearly everything for a larger cause. The movie opens in the aftermath of the first film's upheaval. Arrakis is a powder keg, the Harkonnens are reasserting brutal control, spice production is being strangled by guerrilla attacks, and the Emperor is watching the chessboard, worried about a figure who could unify and radicalize the planet's people. Paul and the Fremen stage increasingly bold strikes to cripple spice flow, which is basically the global economy's open wound. You see guerrilla raids that are more than spectacle. They are carefully choreographed to show how this fight is as much ideological as it is physical. Paul's choices are tactical and prophetic at once. He orders operations that are militarily smart, but also symbolically devastating because he understands how stories move masses. Lady Jessica remains a force, fierce, clever, and deeply maternal. She's learning to navigate Fremen politics, to support Paul without smothering him, and to protect the people who have become their family. Stilgar is steady, a leader with grit and the scars to prove it. He's learning to trust someone who was once an outsider and is now at the heart of their plans. Their relationships are the kind that movies spend time on, because without those human ties, the politics would feel hollow. There's also the complicated presence of Gurney Halleck, whose loyalty is wound through with grief and stubbornness, and he adds that ragged, salty humor that breaks tension when things get too heavy. A big moment in the film is the emergence of the resurrected Duncan Idaho. The Gola plotline gives the story a deliciously eerie quality. Here's a man who should be dead, back with memories that feel real and flashes of confusion that cost him dearly. Duncan's presence forces people to ask what it means to be human when memory and identity can be manufactured. He's loyal, brave, and blasted with the burden of a second chance. Watching him reconcile his past self with the present is one of those quiet sci-fi beats that sticks with you after the sand settles. On the other side, the Harkonnens are nastier than ever. Baron Vladimir Harkonnen is the grotesque heart of their cruelty, still scheming, while the younger blood, Fade Routha, looms as the action-oriented heir. Fade is charismatic in a razor-thin way. He is everything fashioned to be lethal, quick on his feet, and practiced in the theater of brutality. His training scenes and political maneuvering are designed to show he's not a mindless monster. He's dangerous because he's cunning and has been groomed to be a symbol of terror. The Baron and Fade's cruelty is the perfect foil for Paul's ideology. They play at the extremes of domination, while Paul plays at the extremes of revolution. Meanwhile, the Emperor, Shaddam IV, watches his empire wobble. He arrives with all the pomp and a certain tired arrogance of someone whose power has been absolute for too long, and his terror at losing control is palpable. He brings Sardaukar, elite troops meant to cow, but the desert and the people of Arrakis do not bend easily. The confrontation between Paul and the Emperor is political theater turned knife fight. Paul leverages religious fervor, military threat, and the practical control of the spice to force a reckoning. The movie smartly uses smaller scenes, quiet manipulations, whispered threats, and intimate betrayals to show how power shifts without always needing an explosive battle. There are some standout sequences that work both as spectacle and as character study. The attack on the spice processing facilities is cinematic genius. It's windy, filled with sand and danger, and it shows the Fremen's intimate knowledge of their environment. You see Paul riding a worm in a way that makes the planet feel alive, not just a backdrop. It's also when the cost of rebellion becomes real. Each victory causes ecological and human fallout that Paul must reckon with. The film doesn't let you forget that the very thing everyone wants, spice, comes from an ecosystem that can be destroyed by political violence. That ecological awareness is a subtle but steady drumbeat under the action. Romance threads through the story without ever turning into fluff. Chani is not a side character. She's strategic, fierce, and the emotional core of Paul's choices. Their intimacy scenes are tender and raw, and the film allows them to be more than a trope. She challenges him, keeps him accountable, and questions the path that could turn their love into a political casualty. The way they banter, the small jokes they make to one another amid the Dune, humanizes this epic and makes Paul's eventual choices feel tragic and understandable at once. There's also political intrigue at the imperial court that's deliciously corrosive. Princess Irulan is a masterclass in restrained menace. She plays the long game with a smile that doesn't touch her eyes. Her presence complicates Paul's path to power. She's a bargaining piece, a legacy maker, and someone who understands the importance of image and continuity. The court scenes are excellent for those who like slow-burn tension. Every word is loaded, every gesture has weight, and you can feel how fragile the Emperor's hold really is. Aliyah, who's young but terrifyingly perceptive, creates one of the film's most unsettling notes. She is a product of a dangerous legacy, carrying insights and a voice that sometimes feels older than her years. Watching her wield knowledge and power in ways that unsettle other characters makes for chilling cinema. The movie suggests that children of war inherit wounds and capacities that can be weaponized or redeemed. It's one of the darker threads woven into the story. As things escalate, Paul's visions intensify. He sees a future that terrifies him, the jihad sweeping the universe in his name, millions dying while his face becomes a symbol for something uncontrollable. His internal conflict is the moral spine of the movie. He is a prophet who doesn't want a crusade of blood, yet his mere success inspires fanaticism beyond his control. The film handles this well. Paul isn't a one-note messiah. He's deeply flawed, haunted by what victory could cause. He tries to steer history, but history has a nasty habit of steering back. The final conflict is not just a battle of armies, but a clash of ideologies. Political theater culminates in a confrontation that tests loyalty, tests personal limits, and tests whether power can be wielded without becoming corruption. Paul's duel with Fade Routha is brutal, intimate, and narratively satisfying because it ties together personal revenge and geopolitical destiny. The choreography balances suspense and meaning. When the duel lands, you feel it in your chest because it's not just about who wins a fight, it's about who will write the next chapter of civilization. After the dust settles, the resolution is achingly complicated. Paul forces a settlement that brings the Emperor to his knees. He secures his position by marrying politically while keeping Chani in his heart, a choice that captures the grim compromises of leadership.
The movie doesn't glorify the victory. There's a weary note to the end. Paul takes the throne, but he does so knowing he set loose forces that might consume him and everyone he loves. The wedding is staged as a political act, necessary, cold, and intricate, with the personal costs left to simmer in the background. The film is brave enough to let the audience sit with that discomfort. Triumph tastes of ashes when you know what it took. Throughout, the production design deserves its own applause. Arrakis is rendered as a character, wind-bent structures, endless dunes, and a spirituality that feels like sand in the lungs. Costume and creature design are used intelligently to suggest cultures and histories rather than shout them, and the score, tonal, sometimes mournful, keeps you rooted in the desert's mood. The cinematography is patient. It lingers on a face, on a blade, on a moment of silence, and that patience pays off because it lets you breathe between the big set pieces. The themes the film pushes are big and uncomfortable: the danger of messianic figures, the ethical costs of liberation movements, the ease with which spiritual momentum can become violent crusade. It asks whether a leader can be both strategist and moral compass when power itself warps intent. The script doesn't hand you a neat answer. Instead, it insists you watch as its hero becomes what he feared, and that ambiguity is what makes it interesting. It's a reminder that epic-scale stories gain their power when they also feel intimate, when you can connect a galaxy-spanning policy to a single grief-stricken glance. Small human moments anchor the mythology. There are scenes where characters tell jokes to fend off dread, where they share food and stories in the shadow of catastrophe, and those instances are crucial. They're the salt to the film's meat, little things that make the stakes real. The movie also doesn't shy away from brutality. There are betrayals and losses that land hard, and they serve to remind us this isn't a fairy tale where the right side always wins without scars. Tone-wise, the movie keeps its seriousness but allows for a bit of sardonic humor. It never becomes a parody of itself. It never winks too much. Instead, it finds a humane voice, someone telling you about godlike ambitions and whispering also